Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our wrestling podcast. So, without further ado, the following podcast is scheduled for one fall, and today's topic, the Legacy of Sid.
Welcome to the O.W.P. This is our wrestling podcast. This is Dave along with Jess.
I have heartburn, Dave.
Oh no. And Craig.
Hello.
Bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. And now on to our topic today, the Legacy of Sid. Hit us up on Instagram at O.W.P. 2019. Click on Linktree. You can find us on several platforms, including Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. What's going on, guys?
Hello, David.
Hello. What is your beef today, my friend?
Well, we're here to talk about the one, the only Sid. He was Sid Vicious, Sid Justice, and he was Psycho Sid.
Sid Vicious, Justice, and have a good night, everybody. Nah, there's a lot more to it. A lot of fun stuff. A lot of, hate to say it, uncomfortable moments.
I got inspired for this one because I recently found out he was on Instagram and he's branching out and kind of getting on social media. So I was like, God, you know what? Like, nobody really talks about Sid in that light. And I don't mean that to be mean or anything like that. I mean, he gets a lot of work for shoot interviews and people know Sid, you know, they'll say, oh, you remember Sid Vicious? Oh yeah, totally. Psycho guy, right? Yeah. Like, so people remember him, but I mean, you know, I'm being honest. I don't mean this to slam him because there's only a select few that can get this honor, but you know, there's never a Mount Rushmore talk with Sid involved and again, I'm not being a dick towards him. It's true. So, you know, if we don't pay tribute to him, God damn it, on our wrestling podcast, who the fuck is gonna? Is my question to you.
I think it's a good question. I hope more do, because I think Sid has a everlasting impact on wrestling, more so than people may want to admit. He was a big son of a bitch, which a lot of people liked. He had a really aggressive nature in the ring, and I hate to say it, I don't hate to say it. I love the fact that people like that get over. In the wrestling world, it's great to have giants in there because you need someone to overcome that giant. That's what stories are all about. And I think Sid filled that role better than a lot of people, right?
I mean, in his prime, he was legitly like 6'9", 320 pounds. And he's a big man. Like, I saw him live at my very first house show I ever saw in like March of 1992. And to this day, I've seen a lot of live wrestling shows since then. I've seen El Gigante live. I've seen big, legitly, you know, El Gigante was like 7'7", but Sid was the biggest, like, proportionately correct person I've ever seen, if that makes sense. Like, El Gigante was lanky and just had really long legs and all that, and he was a marvel to see. But Sid, like, he was proportionate, meaning like everything looked relative. And like I was midway up in the arena, and you could see the size of his traps all the way up midway in the LA Sports Arena. He is to this day the biggest human being I've seen, like in relative, where everything was relative to his body, if that makes any sense.
It does. Yeah. Like he's as big as he is wide as he is tall, whereas Brock Lesnar is too wide for his height. It's like proportionally, Sid had the ultimate tall plus width body. Like he kept it for the most part. Like no one's quite had a history. He was only there 11 years between WCW and WWFE, but man, no one quite had the story jumping back and forth that he did. He missed the Attitude Era somewhat, but he still captured 2 heavyweight titles per WWF, per WCW, and a whole bunch more, and never really was not in the main event picture when he jumped back and forth. So he has had a hell of a history in those 10 years with a few reasons behind the jumps and a bunch of injuries too. Who knows what could have been, but he to Jess's point, he gets forgotten a lot in that decade.
I think we're going to find out as we go through this too, like Sid kind of did what he wanted in the sense of like a lot of people are tied to the industry and the company they're with, and they don't. I couldn't leave. I can't leave. Where like I think we talked about it in a past episode. Jeff Jarrett was kind of that way too. Jeff Jarrett was like, "Fucking him out."
Yeah,
and like he had no qualms about it. And I think Sid was similar. I think as we kind of start getting into his career and everything, you'll just sort of see that like he was like, "Oh, you don't want to, back up what you said you're going to give me. I'm out. Bye."
Yeah.
Go play softball.
No,
and I don't mean that as we'll get in the softball thing too. But I mean, like, no, I mean, I know it's become a joke, but like, we'll talk about it as it goes. But he had no fear with that. He's like, oh, I'm just rather go do something I like.
You've got no leverage over a dude that will leave and be happy about it. And he did that multiple times. He's just like, I don't need this. And give me what I want, or else I'm gone.
Yeah. No, it's incredibly interesting his career as it goes. Because honestly, I think if he was more loyal, I think maybe somebody would have left him sooner. I think they would have made that decision. But the fact that he jumped back and forth might have prolonged his career because he felt he had more value than people had value in him. And that's the way you should run your life. If someone doesn't have value in you, you got to bounce. Time to go. And it's funny about wrestling itself. I think some guys don't do that, and they wait for the piper to call, and oh shit, you're releasing me? What the fuck? I've been nothing but loyal to you, but nobody cares. Nobody cares about that. Look at the people like Drake Maverick. Look at all this talent that's being released from WWE right now. Like, oh, I was loyal. No, they don't care.
Be loyal to yourself.
Yeah, and Sid was. I think Sid was loyal to himself more than most, if not the most loyalist person to himself that I could think of in the wrestling industry, right? So let's jump in to the beginning of Sid. He actually entered the sport after an encounter with Randy Savage and Lanny Poffo, which, by the way, people don't know that they're brothers, right? Those are brothers. I don't know what is there. They are Poffos, right? They're all Poffos.
Yes.
So I think they saw him at a gym or something way back in the day.
Yes, yeah, and they saw how big he was.
Yeah, they're like, that's a big son of a bitch. We got to recruit this guy. He began his career in CCW, which was a Southern promotion, as Lord Humongous. Right? Anything to say about that?
He wore like a Jason mask.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's like a masked guy.
He also had stints at New Japan Pro Wrestling. He challenged Tatsumi Fujinami for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. He went to World Class Championship Wrestling, where he adopted the name Sid Vicious from the bass player of the punk rock band the Sex Pistols. Right. So those are the early days. Anything about the early days that come to mind?
No, it's a typical story. Back when there were territories, it's like, yeah, that's how people kind of came up. They just sort of met the right person or had a weird encounter with someone, at a gym, and like, hey, you're big, yeah. Like, and he's like, you think I'm really big?
Yeah,
thank you for saying that.
You're a big son of a bitch, yeah.
He's like, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
No problem. I appreciate you.
And then he's just like, you want to come and get into wrestling? He's like, absolutely, lead the way. And then like that was it.
I'm here at the gym too.
Lanny, be quiet, Lanny. Go.
Now it's time for set number 2. He would always run.
Genius. I love it.
I hope my brother doesn't turn you off. No, it's fine. It's okay. Everyone's got to take care of their brother.
Oh, no.
I'm sorry. I know. What the fuck just happened? You just started bashing Lanny Poffo for no reason. And he's a nice guy from what I can tell.
I hear he's a great guy.
Oh, shit.
Where the literary go. That may be true for Oscar Wilde. For me, it isn't so. Get your encyclopedia, select the bookmarked L, and look up Lincoln Abraham and read it well. I am of the same alumni as our 16th president, and when I wear my cap and gown, I proudly represent my beloved alma mater, runneth over my poor cup. It's Lincoln. Now go and look it up. And when your homework is complete, then you will understand I am the genius Lanny Poffo, the world's smartest man.
Probably a great podcaster too. He's got so many good stories, I'm sure.
I just think it would be awesome if like legitly that's how it happened. Like they both were overly talking in the characters that we know them as. Yeah, nice curl over there. Thank you so much for saying that. I feel I'm the best at it.
Lanny's just throwing frisbees. It's like,
I was wondering where the frisbees were gonna come in. Like, oh no.
I don't believe in lifting weights. I think it restricts you.
Oh no. Shut up, Lanny.
I'm sorry, Dave.
Lanny, shut up, Lanny.
Shut the fuck up.
Oh god. And We get to the NWA WCW days. He entered those arenas in 1989 and was quickly paired with Dan Spivey to form the tag team of the Skyscrapers. Managed by Teddy Long, Sid also began using the powerbomb as his finishing move, which was perfect in my mind. A powerbomb from that kind of height shows so much devastation. So as long as he doesn't hurt anybody, which I'm sure we'll get into. Their most notable feud was with the Road Warriors. So I mean, that's a lot of girth in that ring with those four guys, is it not? Would you estimate probably close to 1,000 pounds?
Yeah, it was pretty. I would say the most notable match, if you want to go back and look at it, I want to say it was Halloween Havoc 89, if I'm thinking right. It was the Skyscrapers against the Road Warriors in like a street fight or something like that. And just seeing those two, all four of those assholes like standing next to each other, I'm like, good God, this is ridiculous. Like they always said that WWE was laying out the Giants. That's weird. Go back and look at Halloween Havoc 89 and see the size of these fucks in the ring.
That was a lot of prime cut beef right there, my friend.
Yeah, I was watching Skyscrapers versus the Steiners, and I think their last match they had before Sid was injured, and the Steiners didn't even treat them like they were big guys and couldn't get off their feet. It was just everything started with a Steiner line and a throw, like a clothesline right over the top. They just beat the living tar out of each other. And you would never know that the Skyscrapers were supposed to be this huge team against the Steiners, and they didn't look it. It was just
they
plus two, unfortunately, they were like in this land of NWA/WCW where they kind of they liked big guys. They knew, but their top guys were always the 6 feet tall, 220 pounders like Flair and stuff. And they respected work rate and wrestling more. But when they would put these guys in the middle of the card, they wouldn't treat Sid or Spivey for that matter as like, the giants that they should have been. They, like Craig said, like Steiners had them off their feet like often and regular, like, it's like, wow, God, like, You got to book him a little bit better, but I know Dave will keep going on here, and there will be better pasture for Sid.
Oh, sure. But speaking of the Steiners, Sid suffers a broken rib and punctured lung at the hands of the Steiner brothers, and that caused the split of the Skyscrapers team. So probably that sounds like a really shit thing to happen, but it was probably the best thing for Sid to happen. I think we all realize that Sid is much better as a singles wrestler and just a giant, and we'll kind of get into that, but. After recovering that, Sid was named the newest member of the Four Horsemen on May 11th of 1990. He was brought into the group to be the muscle, neutralize.
Read it out loud. Read it out loud, Dave. Now.
I'm trying. I really. I feel like Jess leaves me notes and he just throws it in. He's like, Dave can't get through this. There's no fucking way.
I want you to read it, yeah.
But it happened. He has to neutralize RoboCop at Capital Combat pay-per-view.
That was a real thing.
It happened.
So Vince was always so seamless, right, at getting mainstream attention. Like he did the obvious stuff, like get celebrities for WrestleMania and shit. WCW and NWA were like, what if we get RoboCop? Because I guess somehow like the Turner Broadcasting folk, like, I don't know if they produced the original RoboCop movie or something. I think Orion was the first. I could be wrong, but like they produced the RoboCop movie, and so Turner was a part of that, or they were partners with them or something. So they were just like, why don't we bring RoboCop? And I think this was to promote the sequel, if I'm not mistaken, RoboCop 2. So they legitimately had a guy dressed as RoboCop at their Capital Combat pay-per-view that was going to protect Sting. So they had this cage for some match. I don't remember what it was for. And it was supposed to be for J.J. Dillon to go in the cage and get elevated above the ring like they do with managers who interfere too much. They're like, you know what? You're going to be in a cage and suspended above the ring. So they had the cage down there. Well, the Horsemen came down and they bullied Sting, who was just healing from his knee injury, so he wasn't very mobile. So they put him in the cage, and RoboCop legitly walked out and bent the bars and let Sting free. So originally they brought Sid in to neutralize RoboCop, which I don't even know how the logistics work for that, but that was originally why they put Sid with the Horsemen, because, WCW can't get out of their own way and have like a long-term plan for somebody. They were just like, we'll make him a Horseman because you got to fucking fight RoboCop. And then the bookers went to sleep. And like, that's what happens in WCW. So yeah, that's what that shit factory was, and I had to put that in the notes because, god damn it, it's real and it happened.
It fucking happened, Dave.
Is putting their foot down as the mighty enforcers of the NWA stand all for freedom and take aim at the bad guys. Capital Combat 90 with special appearance by RoboCop, See Ric Flair act as executioner when he defends his world heavyweight title in a death-defying cage match with total package Lex Luger. The Steiners use SWAT team tactics as they strong-arm Doom. Norman and the Road Warriors take on the Tough Guys in a 6-man tag team rumble. And the ultimate showdown between good and evil. Sting.
Someone had to tell Sid in the back, RoboCop's going over.
He's like, that's fair.
He's going to bend the bars.
He's like, I'm getting a check, right?
I can't bend the bars. That's right. You can't bend the bars.
That's fine. Yeah,
because RoboCop was in the key art too, and on the VHS box, but it was called Capital Combat, so it was too many stupid themes. Just whatever.
Yes.
Just call it RoboCop's Revenge or whatever. Capital. It was dumb. RoboCop opening.
I guarantee. All I gotta say is it's Kevin Sullivan's idea. I guarantee it.
The point, probably, I'll blame it on him. Like the point is like it wasn't Sid's fault. You know, I don't want it to seem he was put with the Horsemen, which is totally not like he didn't belong in the group. And I don't mean that he wasn't like worthy of it as far as his stature was concerned, and he was learning his craft for sure. But he just didn't fit that group. Why? Why would Sid not just be a monster heel on his own? He doesn't need a group.
He needs a mic for him. He needs a mouthpiece.
Or if he was the star, in other words, they were going to bring him in the Horseman group and kind of keep him in there for a year, and then afterwards he was just like, you know what? Like, I don't like what you guys do. I feel that we should be fighting for good. And then like they're like, no, you shut your mouth, Sid. And then they turn him face. Boom. There you go. Like that's a great idea, but alas, WCW just doesn't know what they're doing.
It's WCW.
They don't know what to do.
I watched the Wrestle War match today, and the 4 Horsemen come down, and Sid just looks a completely separate part. Doesn't even look like he's part of the Horsemen.
Yeah.
I don't remember whether the entire run looked like that, but from today I was like, no, he doesn't even, at least not even making any attempt to gel with them or be a Horseman.
Well, it feels like nobody was sold on it, including him, right? Is what you're saying. Like they weren't sold on the idea. It was like he was forced in there.
But Dave, I want you to read the next set of notes because this is going to show that how wrong I am and about how much effort they put in behind the push of Sid.
Just got nailed. The Rock didn't leave the ring. The bell has sounded. Anderson rolls out of the way. I don't think they can call him for disqualification because Luger did not give Ole the opportunity to leave the ring.
Yeah, and Ole now calling Vicious over to say something. Then when he turns around, look at that clothesline.
He's got him in the clothesline. He's got a pin. I can't believe it. The total package just nailed Sid Vicious.
Read it.
Okay, I'm reading it. This is, you know what, Sid, if you're out there, I'm sorry.
Read it.
I am sorry. This is horse shit.
Maybe no one's read this to Sid.
I'm just saying. This is bullshit, Sid. Okay, his first televised match since the injury to the Steiners was a 26-second loss to U.S. champion Lex Luger at the Clash of Champions 11. Years after doing a shoot interview, Sid would claim he was being punished by a booker, Ole Anderson, for playing softball during his rib recovery.
And what's interesting about that match is Ole comes down to the ring with Sid. So I don't know whether it was like he was there to make sure it happened.
Yeah, because he was a Horseman still.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's Ole and Sid.
Are you going to do business, Luger?
Yeah.
Or not?
And it was
Sid, are you going to do business?
But he did it. And I think in reading and listening to Sid's shoot interviews and reading about him, he didn't mind doing the job, like as long as you treated him fairly. That's when he would jump. So and he never said he had any issues with, even if it started out like this. I believe he said like, whatever, what the fuck? If that's what you want to do with me, great. Just pay me.
Yeah, you want to squash me against Luger? Fine, just give me a check.
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
way to teach him a lesson.
I'm not knocking the fact that he wanted a check. We all want a check. I mean, what is wrong with that? If Sid's taking care of his family and he's okay getting squashed, I say, hey man, you're a big son of a bitch that doesn't deserve to be squashed like that. But you're like, well, if I get paid and I can take care of my family, I'm down. Let's do it. When does it start? I really think that was his mindset from the get. I feel like we're being a little bit of a sympathist towards him, but I think a lot of wrestlers wouldn't do that. You know, especially someone of his size. I would be like, well, why? Why are we doing this? You would want to question it, but maybe there's some naivete there. But also the fact Sid just doesn't. Not that he doesn't care, but he's like, well, did the check change because I'm getting squashed? No. Okay, fine, let's go.
But fine, yeah. Ole got mad. Well, you were playing softball. You could have re-injured yourself. Well, you could re-injure yourself in rehab, if I'm not mistaken, right? Because in rehab, they have you do strenuous shit to make sure your lung capacity's back up. And
hey, you know what? I can pull my rib again taking a shit. I could take a shit and pull it. I mean,
my point is your rehab, it could be just as, a cause of you re-injuring something than fucking going out and playing softball and just trying to be active. What the fuck is wrong with that?
Honestly, softball is probably the best way to rehab in that situation. Like,
yeah,
what are you really doing that's strenuous?
Do you really think Sid played defense in baseball, like running and jumping and shit and sliding for the ball? No, he's fucking 6'10". He's
Last
not
time I
do that
checked,
shit.
Softball ringers don't do that. They just try to swing for the fences and trot around the bases and have a beer, which is probably what he enjoyed. What's wrong with that? I don't understand. Like,
thought you played softball. Luger, get in here.
And I'm sure Ole was in the fucking greatest shape of his life at this time too.
No, Ole's known to be like a fucking human sauerkraut. Like that's just Ole's fucking legend. He's always been in a pissy mood from what I read from people's biographies, and you got to do it his way, and if you don't, you're wrong, and that's just he's one of those guys, Ole.
That sounds like a piece of shit.
Whoa!
Whoa!
Wow!
Whoa! Hold on. His two biggest.
About to say
what?
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. No,
his two biggest matches as a horseman were versus Sting at Halloween Havoc in October of 1990, and part of the War Games match at Wrestle War pay-per-view in February of '91. Shortly after that, he and the Horsemen would part ways very amicably. Did I say that right?
You did.
Well, how was that match with Sting, by the way?
It was good, but let me tell you. So I heard Sid on a shoot interview say they announced him as 2-time WCW champion. He said, I have to correct you. It's 3. And he cited this match as him actually winning the title. Let me tell you, I'm sure Sid was full of what, and he knew he was full of what. But if Sid ever listens to this, you are not 3-time WCW champion. Don't trust me on this. You're only 2-time champion. Because what happened at the end of this was, again, WCW booking. So Sid's in there, and they're finally treating him right. He gets a title shot against Sting. What they do was they end up spilling to the floor. The Horsemen come down at the end of the match. They distract Sting. Sting chases them to the back. Then Sting comes out with ropes tied around his wrist for whatever odd reason. Sting runs back in the ring, gets in the ring, goes to pick Sid up for a body slam. He can't get him up. Sid falls on him. 1, 2, 3. We have a new NWA heavyweight champion. No, we don't. The real Sting runs out and confronts the imposter Sting in the aisleway, which is Barry Windham in makeup, who was a horseman. And then Sting gets back in the ring. The ref looks at him and sees, no, I apologize. The fake Sting did not come out with ropes tied around his wrist.
The real
fucked
Sting.
That story up. Yeah, the real Sting, when he came out and faced the Sting who just got pinned in the aisle, they met eyes. They stood face to face, and then you see the real Sting with ropes around his wrist. So in the whole scuffle to the back, they wanted you to believe that the Horseman tied him up real quick, and then Barry Windham, dressed as Sting in the same tights he had on that night, same boots he had on that night, same face paint, goes in there real quick, runs in the ring, acts like he's going to body slam Sid, can't get him up. Sid falls, 1, 2, 3. But then Sting, miraculously, all those horsemen, they tied him up with one white rope and they said, that'll hold him. And then Sting broke free and ran out. The ref looked at Sting and saw the other Sting leave, and Sting showed him the ropes on his arms. So the ref said, re-ring the bell, we're restarting the match. Sid, there was balloons and confetti falling from the ceiling. Sid had the belt. He didn't really realize the ref was restarting it. Stinger splashed him. Small package, 1, 2, 3. Sting actually won the match. So it wasn't a Yokozuna Hulk thing where Sid wins, Sting wins it back. No, nobody counts Sid's as a title win here. I just want to say it. And if he ever does listen to this, I know Sid, it hurts.
I count it.
But it doesn't count. You can go any Wikipedia site, you go on the WWE site, go on any history of wrestling championship, and nobody ever counted legit, that as a title change.
But legit, if he's playing the part, if he's doing some kayfabe on us, why wouldn't he say that?
No, you're correct. But it was a recent interview, and he was chill. I mean, he wasn't being a jerk about it. He was just like, actually, I have to correct you. I'm 3-time champion.
I would play that shit to my grave.
But like I said,
I fucking wanted 3.
No, I think he knows he was full of
I think when he says it, most his shoot interviews and podcasts, he's pretty confident about himself. If he says it, he means it.
I feel that he was kind of serious, but yeah. But it does not count, Sid. I'm sorry to break your heart. You're only 2-time champion, not 3. I'm just saying.
That's all.
Because I've owned my own wrestling company before, and I'm a booker, so you know what I'm saying, Sid. You know what I'm talking about, buddy.
Oh yeah. Well,
but I kind of liked it. Honestly, I know people like to shit on it. They call it the Halloween Havoc hoax. I thought it was kind of creative. Listen, like, you know, for as much as I'll shit on WCW, I have to give him at least some kind of credit here. They were trying something different. I know it's like, he's a big guy, right? Why does he have to have all that shit go on and people cheat for him to win a title? Sid's a big monster. I'm not saying Sting should have pinned him clean and killed his momentum. I mean, you already beat the guy in 26 seconds at Clash of the Champions a few months before. So what, I mean, you know, but I mean, at the same time, like, you know, I kind of liked it, but then I look back on it going, why does a big man need that much shit going on to win? So I'm in the middle about it, but like it was what it was. And like I guess it didn't hurt Sid because they did show Sid win. And then they showed you that, oh no, it was a fake Sting. And then Sting had to surprise him, Stinger splash him, get a quick pin on him. So they didn't like put Sid in the Scorpion Deathlock and have Sid give up or anything like that. It was a quick pin, whatever. They were just I guess they were just trying at this point in 1989 to kind of, you know, keep up with the Joneses. That by that I mean Vince, and you know, do some quirky, cartoony storylines.
You could, I guess
I don't fault
Vince stole this into double doinks.
Barry Windham or somebody.
The celebration, they're already started. Sid's the champion.
Sting just nailed Sid Vicious. This thing's not over. That was a Sting.
That was Sting.
He's got him in the Stinger splash. He's got him rolled up. And then Stinger beats Sid Vicious. Sting has pinned Sid Vicious. He retains the title.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner and still World Heavyweight Champion, Sting.
Very well. Very, very true, Dave. Very true. But anyway, sorry, Greg, go ahead. I think you're going to say something.
No, in addition to that match, Dave, you had mentioned the War Games, and I'm watching that back. If you want to see Sid almost kill Brian Pillman, go ahead and watch that Wrestle War 90 and the War Games match. And he doesn't realize the cage is so short, and he just crunches his back and then power bombs him. And like, because Pillman's feet hit the cage, he almost just breaks his neck. It beats the living tar out of him.
Look at this. Jimbo, look over here. Vicious. Vicious. Oh, Jesus. Oh, my goodness. Right on that shoulder. Right on that shoulder.
He's out, baby. He's out. He's out on his feet right over here. Not again. Not again, Jimbo. Not again. Not again. Not again.
Oh, good
man.
gosh.
Man.
Pillman is out.
Yeah. For people who haven't seen the War Games cage, there's two separate rings side by side, and they put a big cage over it, but they put a top on it, and it's not high like Hell in the Cell became. It is like Sid was almost hitting his head on it the whole time anyway because he's so tall.
So you're lucky if it's 8 feet high and Sid's almost 7 feet tall. So.
Yeah, like so it's like
and it sags. Right?
Yes. So he picked Brian Pillman. The whole spot was he was going to, you know, power bomb Brian Pillman over and over again until Pillman couldn't continue. So Pillman didn't quit. He couldn't answer the bell. So they were trying to kind of build Pillman and having this big monster Sid like power bomb him. So when Sid picked him up, imagine Sid picking Pillman up. He puts his head between his legs. He picks him up for the power bomb. But you know, like normally the guy will kind of sit on Sid's face and then Sid power bombs him.
Sure.
Pillman hits the top of the cage because it's too low. So Sid, not adjusting for that, is rotating Pillman up like he's going to sit. But when Pillman hits and he feels that resistance, he just drives down with Pillman and drives him down on the top of his head. Like, so and you see Sid get down and put his hand on his chest and ask Pillman, are you okay? Like, you see Sid concerned. So he wasn't trying to be careless. It was just the logistics of the cage and everything. So to Sid's credit, and he did, he leaned down right away and he was like, are you all right? And then I think he picked him up again and actually powerbombed him the right way. And then, you know, Pillman couldn't answer the bell or something like that. So
it was then carried out by El Gigante.
Yeah, he was carried out by El Gigante, which is terrible.
That's a horrible fucking ending to that story.
Yep. Any story that ends with, and then El Gigante carried him out like a bitch. It's not a good story.
Oh, no. Okay. Sid, obviously, after the Horseman debacle, he begins negotiations with WWF. His name was obviously changed to Sid Justice in the WWF reign. Vignettes of his debut began airing on the June 8th episode of Primetime Wrestling. He was announced as a special guest referee enforcer at the main event of SummerSlam in 91 with Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior versus the Triangle of Terror. That's right. I swear to God, Jess,
That was their name.
That
was their name. Why are you hating on?
You're really fucking with me right now.
Sergeant Slaughter, Colonel Mustafa, and General Adnan. Why are you fucking hating on the Triangle of Terror?
Why can't?
I don't know why you have such a problem with shit. You know what I'm
saying? After the match, Sid Justice confirmed his face status as he posed with Hulk Hogan. And then during a match with Jake Roberts in 91, he injured his bicep and was forced out of a scheduled match of Survivor Series. He returned at Royal Rumble 92. He entered at number 29 after eliminating Hogan from behind. Hulk grabbed Sid's arm and allowed Ric Flair to dump Sid over and win the match. A couple of things on that. I mean, Ric Flair was like the ultimate Iron Man, actually wins the WWF title at this point, by the way. It was up for grabs. And at the same time, Jess has commented on this, I don't know on the air, but definitely off the air, about how the fuck does Hogan get away with so much heel shit? And can you explain what you're talking about, Jess?
Well,
especially
even going back when he came in, like they were, like Sid in shoot interviews and stuff said that when he got coaxed over, Vince said like I need a big star again. Like the Warrior was still with the company when he signed Sid, but Hulk was getting old and Vince knew it. So I think Vince is like, I need another face. I need somebody that's big. You're big. That looks larger than life. You definitely look great. Your body looks awesome. Like Sid looked like an awesome comic book character come to life. So he's just like, I kind of need another face. And so Vince, according to Sid, Vince is like, you're going to have a championship run. I'm going to put the strap on you. Like I'm going to put you at the top of the card. So he does bring Sid in and it looks like that's where he's going. And then I think this starts kind of like the first two times that both companies were going to put the rocket on Sid and put him at the top, just weird fucking circumstances happen. So this bicep injury that happens kind of starts a theme for Sid. And don't get me wrong, he's 6'10" and 320 pounds. The guy's going to pull shit, like it's just going to happen. So he was on that roll since when he did the pose down with Hulk in 1991 at the end of SummerSlam, and they were going to put him in a program with Taker and Jake and make him like this big face, and defend Macho Man's honor because, they were picking on Macho Man. And so all that. So Sid was going to be in the big plans, and then Warrior leaves at SummerSlam 91. So you would think right then Vince is like, well, there you go. Even more, the stars are aligning even more for me to anoint a new baby face. It's Sid. And then he injures his bicep. He gets taken out of the Survivor Series match. Like, people kind of forget about him. He sort of loses his momentum a little bit. But he does come back at the beginning of 92. They announce he's healthy. He's ready to enter the Royal Rumble. I think that's when the Warrior was gone, yes, but they had to bring Savage back, at that point to kind of take the place of the Warrior. Sid got injured, which I'm sure kind of irritated Vince. Not because Sid did anything wrong, but just because Vince is like, fuck, I had my table set. And then Hulk and Vince's relationship gets strained. And then Sid comes back at the beginning of 92 to all this political madness. The steroid trial accusations were starting at this point. Hulk was getting tired and old. So was his character.
And Flair falls into his lap.
Yeah, and Flair came in at right around the time that Sid did anyway, and it was just kind of like this whole thing where Vince didn't know what to do. So Vince's big thing after the Royal Rumble is, okay, I got to turn him heel, because at that time, I'm not sure what time he would know this, but he would know the Warrior's going to come back at WrestleMania 8. So I got my babyface back. Hulk's going to leave because they were, arguing like children. And I think Vince is just like, well, I got to make him a heel at this point. So I feel that injury sucked for Sid, because I always imagine that if he didn't injure his bicep in October of 91 and he just went straight through, I think the momentum that Sid would have had from the crowd, it would have been almost undeniable that Vince would have had to have done something more with him as a face than do what he did when he brought him back and kind of turn him heel. And that sucks for Sid, because
they were definitely all over Sid in a good way before that happened. They were.
And it's famous because in New York in the Knickerbocker Arena, they had the Royal Rumble 92. At the end, when Sid dumped Hulk out, I could tell their booking was to turn Sid heel because Hulk's back was facing him. Sid comes up from behind. Sid dumps him. Sid even looks down and says, "It's every man for himself, big boy," and turns around. And that's when Hulk grabs his arm. And then Flair comes in from behind and dumps him out. So when Hulk gets back in there, they have this face off and pull apart thing. And they both take turns posing to the crowd. And the crowd noticeably booed Hogan and cheered the shit out of Sid.
They were ready
telling
to move
everybody. telling him, yeah, it's time to move on. It's time. We're tired of Hogan. But in Vince's mind, he was like, well, fuck. So all the clips leading after that, they actually spiced the crowd in and made the crowd boo Sid and cheer Hulk. They put so when they would show the clips on their syndicated television show leading up, afterwards, here's what happened at Royal Rumble. They changed it, but we all saw it live in my living room. It was like 60-40 Sid, no problem. And Hogan was actually getting booed, and it was odd to watch. And then you see like Hulk with this deflated body because he was older. He was getting off roids here. Sid with just jacked next to him. It's like you kind of saw like, oh, like that's your choice right there. Whether you think he's the best worker or not, that's your choice. That's always been my problem with wrestling promoters, And Vince usually doesn't fall for that. Vince usually goes with the big muscular guy, But like in this case, he went with Flair, which is fine, and he went with Savage. But like Sid was right there, and people were telling you like, this guy's big. We want to cheer for him.
Vince has a problem if someone sneezes in the same room as him. So a bicep injury probably definitely bothered him at that point.
Yeah.
And this wasn't the first time. I mean, this wasn't the last time that kind of happened. It was that this was the very first time that I think you'd finally seen that Hogan got a little old and the crowd was tired of him to the point where it was beyond the minority, the 50-50 that used to kind of love-hate Hogan. Like this booing, and you could at the Royal Rumble, like Hogan is shocked to hear it. And when he takes it in, as Jess was saying, and it actually kind of happened a few years later with Shawn Michaels too. Like you couldn't help at this point and that point, like to just cheer the guy. He was almost a little bit Stone Coldish before Stone Cold, and he looked so good at this point. This wasn't his best year and his most successful year, but this was your first oh shit moment with Sid when you really knew he had something, or they were going to give him something.
Hulk Hogan against this man, my guest, Sid Justice. Now, this matchup this afternoon, I expect is going to be a barn burner.
No, shut up, you fat, bald-headed little oaf. Now you, Hogan, a barn burner it won't be. It is going to be your last match, and I will see to that. I have already made that promise to you, Hogan. As I leave this dressing room, and I stand in the ring, and you walk down that aisle, you remember one thing, that I am the master, and you are but the learner, Hogan. You are but the learner.
Wait a minute, Sid. I think that's fair. That's really fair. So, after that controversial finish at the Royal Rumble, President Jack Tunney announced that Hogan was the #1 contender for Ric Flair's championship at WrestleMania 8. Obviously upset by that ruling, Sid turns against Hogan on Saturday night's main event during a tag match. This set up the double main event for WrestleMania 8, Savage versus Flair and Hogan versus Sid Justice. Sid would lose by disqualification to Hogan at Mania. And we all know what happened at WrestleMania 8 with Savage and Flair. I think that was a really good match. I don't think people talk about it enough.
It was great.
Not to get too far off topic, but Savage is amazing. I mean, Savage and Flair, I wish we could have had more of that when they were both in their prime, but we got it. We got it at 8, and it's good. It's really good. It's very underrated. Give it a chance and watch WrestleMania 8 when you do, because I think you'll be very impressed by that WrestleMania. It's probably one of the most underrated ones, I think. Things get hazy as there's reports of a failed drug test with Sid. They begin to surface. And that leads to more frustration with Vince McMahon over the direction. Later interviews would reveal Sid was unhappy with the way he was used versus what Vince had promised him. So Sid would leave WWF in April of 91, and he would pursue a career in what?
Softball.
He likes that softball. Nothing wrong with that. But guess what? He does make a return to WCW in May of 93. Sid makes a surprise return at Slamboree of 93. And he made very short work of Van Hammer, as rightfully so. He would headline pay-per-views throughout the summer against Sting and Davey Boy Smith. At the end of the year, during a tour of England in October, Sid and Arn Anderson would be involved in the infamous scissor incident. We talked about this in our Wrestling Gets Real episodes. Was that episode 1? I can't remember which one it was in, but check it out.
Yeah, it was one. Yeah, and I don't want to, talk about that too much because it's a lot of hearsay, but at the same time, and Anderson refuses to talk about it, he claims he doesn't remember it, which is fine. I'll take him at face value for that. But Sid has told his side of the story, and you can find it on YouTube, I'm sure. This was the second time where I said, like the first times that the two companies were going to put the rocket to him, he gets injured and he gets kind of derailed, and here it's like. He comes back in WCW. He works as a heel with Vader. And then it kind of makes sense that he was going to turn against Vader at the end of 93. And he was booked to beat Vader at Starrcade 93 to win the world title. That was their plans. Cool. That's what they was going to do. But because of the scissor incident in London, they changed gears. They put Flair in that position. They fired Sid. And, right when the second company was going to finally put the rocket to him and put the title on him, and turn him face, by the way, because Vader was going to stay heel and he was going to turn face. Something happened. And this is obviously Sid's fault because no matter what, whether Anderson started the fight verbally downstairs, both guys were at fault for fucking assaulting each other with a weapon. No matter who came to whose hotel door, they both were, inebriated and they had no business doing that. And I'm sure both feel that way. They had no business getting to that level. And that derailed Sid again. So the first time he got injured, not really his fault. Second time, the other company going to put the rocket to him, totally Sid's fault. And he got derailed again. No world champion for Sid.
The thing that and Craig, maybe you can comment on this too. The thing that baffles me the most about this whole incident is that I can't believe none of them served any time. I mean, they almost killed each other. The amount of wounds on each other, it's in total in the 30s and 40s. I mean, so many stabs and issues. I mean, Vader even cites a moment where he said he put his thumb and I can't remember if it was arms or I think it was Sid's stomach to stop bleeding. That might be an exaggeration, but there's blood everywhere. I mean, it is a horror film of blood and it throughout this room in this hallway of this hotel. And it doesn't even sound real. I mean, right, Craig? I mean, what do you, just briefly give us your take on that.
I mean, The Office tends to frown on attempted murder. Like, there's no way.
But Arn Anderson kept his job, and apparently he brought the scissors. I'm just saying.
I mean,
I love Arn Anderson. I love me Arn Anderson. Don't fret on that. I'm not, but I mean, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So, I mean, I guess someone had to go in that respect, and
it wasn't going to be Arn, right?
No, and the people that saw it probably said, and I don't know the official history, but the aggressor must have been Sid or found in the investigation if he gets to stay and Sid doesn't. And were they both held in like England or something after a while, or
I'm not
hospitalized?
Yeah, well, in the hospital, they were both hospitalized in England for a little bit, and then they were released. But I don't, like Dave said, the funny thing is if there was legal involvement, it was super minimal. And it just got it went away.
I don't know. It was totally squashed.
I don't know. I can only, speculate on, I don't know if WCW just said, hey, look, it's internal, so we'll take care of it. Or, just let us go back. We got to go back to our country or whatever.
And maybe they said, no, neither person is pressing charges. So
yeah,
I don't know, man, but there's scissors involved.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in the business 4 years now. The first time he leaves the WWF, what he says, if you ask Sid, he was guaranteed Hogan's spot because he couldn't get guaranteed money from Vince and felt that he wasn't treated that way. So he leaves after WrestleMania, probably pisses off Vince, leaves it of his own accord, but who knows what would have happened that. And then in this controversial way, in WCW's first stint at WCW, proper, I mean, he gets let go to an incident. So who knows what would happen in both those cases and many more kind of down the line for him. But I think the kid lands on his feet.
What's even funnier about both incidents too is that Sid is not shy about talking about it. Even so much that what they say is the scissor fight. The reason why the conflict started is because Sid was like, well, all these old fuckers are taking spots. And he's referring to Flair, by the way, which we all disagree about that. We thought Flair had a lot to give us, and had a lot left. But him saying all these old guys are just not getting out of the way, we can make things happen if these young guys, including himself, obviously, could get in and make something happen. And that pissed off the likes. I don't even think Flair was around. Flair was actually in his room for once in his life. He was sleeping when it all
I don't even know
went
if
down.
Flair was on that tour because I was like, there's no
I thought
way.
he was. I thought
There's
he was
no
in
way
the
shit
area.
started in a bar and Flair wasn't there drinking. So I'm like, he must have been somewhere else.
I believe he was on the tour, but
I'm telling you, no matter what position he had in the back, there was no way Flair was responsible enough to be, you guys drink. I'm brass now. I got to go upstairs. No,
I'm telling you, that's what's so.
So I legitimately don't think Flair was even on that tour because there's no fucking way that it wouldn't end with Flair in his underwear running down the hall trying.
But you all know that Arn's going to defend Flair to his dying day, and when he hears that, shit's going to fucking turn loose. So that's what started it, quite frankly. And if Sid was just able to keep it to himself and knew where the belt was going, he would have found himself in the right place. But Sid's not one to keep things to himself. He's gonna let you know how he feels, and that's how he's always been. I think, right? So, he would headline. Let me go back. Sid was terminated following that incident. He was booked to face Vader at Starrcade. We already talked about that. He returns back to WWF after a brief stint in the USWA with Jerry Lawler. He decides to come back. He faces Shawn Michaels' bodyguard under the name of Psycho Sid. Who was that bodyguard?
No, he was Shawn's bodyguard.
Oh, he actually was Shawn's bodyguard?
Yeah.
Oh, no, my bad. But who was he? And he was facing Jerry Lawler at the time, or
no? He just did a brief stint in USWA, and then he returned to the WWF as Shawn Michaels' bodyguard under the name Psycho Sid.
So he was just made to bring in heat at WrestleMania 11 between Diesel and Shawn Michaels. Oh, because Diesel had already turned.
Yeah, Diesel was painfully the champion at this point.
That's right. That's great. Good stuff. After Mania, Sid turned on Shawn Michaels, enjoyed the $1 Million Corporation. He feuded against Diesel for the WWF title for some of the summer of 95. And at the end of 95, Sid suffers a serious back injury, forcing him out for 6 months. He does return back on July 8th, a 1996 episode of Raw. He replaced the Ultimate Warrior in a 6-man tag team match with Shawn Michaels and Ahmed Johnson against Vader, Owen, Hart, and Davey Boy Smith. That's just throwing fucking names together. Let's do that. But why was Warrior replaced at this point, Jess?
Two of you, because you're coming to a gang fight and you're forgetting to bring your own gang.
Oh, yeah! All right, thank you very much. Let's take you down to Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson standing by. Gentlemen, we're running out of time. Whom have you chosen?
Jim Cornette, we don't bluff. This is the World Wrestling Federation. Boy, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, and you should have folded. Surprise, surprise. Look what we have for Camp Cornette.
Psycho Sid! You're looking at me! And you're probably asking yourself, Shawn Michaels, what have you gone and done?
Yeah, twice. He's opened the gates of hell, and he has released me. This time for you, Cornette, and the Cornette camp.
There's nothing. There's no good news.
Yes, I can hear you screaming out for help. For help. But there's no one there.
Much rather be on.
Warrior got suspended because he's Warrior, and I think Warrior no-show dates, and so they had to bring somebody back. So they called Sid, and they're like, "Are you want to come back?" And he's like, "Sure." And so they brought him back as a face here.
Yeah, I think there's always the infamous phone call from Vince to the talent when they're almost done with rehab but not quite done, when it's "I need you, pal."
Right.
And this was to some star power after Warrior. So, but at this point, it begins kind of the biggest meteoric rise of Sid's career.
Yes. Ironically, towards the end of '96, the NWO starts taking over and WCW starts beating the shit out of him. And then ironically, when Sid comes back, it's just like he ended up being the answer, as Dave will read on here in a second. He ended up finally being the answer. There's no bicep injury, no scissors involved right now. Like it's finally like they're trying to push him.
He finally gets his match against Vader in October to get a shot at Shawn Michaels for the title at Survivor Series. He turns heel and he would shock the wrestling world, defeating Shawn Michaels to win his first ever WWF title.
And again, in this match especially, they cheered the heck out of him, despite like the ending was Jose Lothario getting a camera hitting his back and falling off, and Shawn caring more about treating Jose Lothario. But and then he
why did Shawn need any kind of excuse to lose?
He didn't, and that was the point. It's like, they put the title on Shawn earlier in the year, and they completely Shawn's character is like this antagonist. And the Shawn Michaels character has always been like that. So Vince wanted to make him, when Brett left for a while, he's like, well, Shawn's going to be my baby face. So they put this old Hispanic guy, Jose Lothario, who legitly was with Shawn at the beginning of Shawn's career and helped train him. So as like a sympathy piece, but it didn't make sense. Like, here comes Shawn, basically a stripper coming out in chaps and,
Shawn.
reflective shit all over his costume and everything or whatever. And even after he'd win matches, he would fake like he was going to take his pants off and shit. And like, so if you weren't a 14 or 15-year-old girl, you did not give a shit about Shawn Michaels. And I can tell you the demographic at WWF at the time was not very big with 14 or 15-year-old girls. So it's no wonder that Shawn's first babyface run with the title kind of flopped. People were starting to get sick of Shawn. He wasn't selling the tickets they wanted. He wasn't spiking the ratings. So when Sid comes back, again, that big golden god's back, the big muscular 6'10", 320 pounds, and people started cheering him. And then they actually turned Sid heel during this match. He was hinting like he was going to turn heel anyway. But yeah, it's like Vince and the booking committee thought, well, he'll get heat on himself when he hits Lothario with the camera, and then Shawn will get sympathy. But they're in New York again here in Madison Square Garden, and the place booed the shit out of Shawn Michaels, and they cheered Sid. And it just, Sid ends up going on the outside, hitting Jose. Shawn goes out while Shawn's taking care of Jose Lothario. Sid grabs the camera again, hits Shawn with it, brings him in the ring, power bombs him. 1, 2, 3. The place goes nuts. And Sid looked awesome with the belt, by the way. And he was this heel monster with the belt. Finally, I kind of feel like, I think Sid sort of felt like, fucking finally, man. Now they can see sort of what I can do.
But even in that moment, looking back, he has this awesome shot of him on the turnbuckle with the belt above his head. But then they keep cutting back to Lothario,
Shawn.
Taking away from Sid's kind of moment on the turnbuckle. I felt for that today. I was just like, man, scooping his heat. But I thought it was a good moment for him. And they,
scooping it, bro.
Scooping my heat.
Sid just may finish it. If Sid hits it, it's over. We got a new champion. I can't believe it.
But yeah, it's I know it's kind of silly, but as wrestling fans, don't you part of the appeal when we see a wrestler with a title? We're like, that wrestler looks really good with that title. It's a weird thing.
It's a weird thing. Was like that. I hate to say it. Warrior was that. He looked great with the title around his waist.
Well, and it was certain wrestlers, when you see them with titles, you're like, wow, it looks great with them or whatever. Sid looked awesome with the Winged Eagle title. He looked great.
Oh my god, this fucking perfect.
And Vince had to take a gamble here because WCW was, at this point, NWO had only been in fruition for about 4 months, but they were putting the fucking boots to Vince. And at this point,
the title wave was coming, man.
Yeah, so NWO, WCW had already kind of started being number one every week here, and it was just kind of Vince is like, I got to do something, right? So the whole thing was really just to kind of put heat or give Shawn the shine again, basically. So he beats Shawn at 96 Survivor Series, and then in Royal Rumble of January in Shawn's hometown of Houston, Texas, in the Alamo Dome, Shawn was scheduled to win it back, and he did.
Yeah, that was in February 7th of He lost the title to Shawn Michaels at Royal Rumble, but then he would regain it back from Bret Hart, actually, on the February 7th edition of Raw. That's fascinating, to lose a title on a televised show of Raw.
Shawn lost his smile, at this point. So literally, that's what the whole thing was like. Vince was trying to put the shine back on Shawn. He's always loved Shawn. God, even when Shawn fucks him. He fucks him.
We talk about this all the time.
Fuck. He always liked Shawn. I think he always said, I heard on Bruce Pritchard's podcast, Vince always liked Shawn because Shawn reminded Vince of Vince when he was young. Cocky. You couldn't talk any sense to him, but he just had all the talent in the world. Well, whatever. Vince bowled so many people over in favor of Shawn. It's disgusting. But yeah, so the whole thing was for Sid to win at Survivor Series. 2 or 3 months later, he would lose to Shawn. Somehow this was supposed to rejuvenate Shawn's, character. Then Shawn finds out, I'm going to lose the title to Bret at WrestleMania 13. No, fuck that. I lost my smile. So he faked an injury, lost his stupid smile, goes away. So Vince is like, title's up for grabs. So they have this in your house in February of 1997, and it was called a Fatal 4-Way. It was Vader, Taker, Austin, and Bret. Bret ends up winning the WWF Championship that night. It was vacant. He put the smile back on the belt on live. He just drew a smile on the belt. And then, so the smile was found. and Brett wins the title for the 4th time. The next night on Raw, fucking Sid wins the title back because Austin comes out and fucks with Brett and causes Brett to walk right into a powerbomb. 1, 2, 3. Sid, just like that, is 2-time WWF champion. Whereas before, bicep injuries, scissors were flying everywhere, and now he's fucking 2-time champion. It's kind of cool. He was in the right place, right time.
The sharpshooter, and now he's delivering the powerbomb! Powerbomb! Yeah! Sid has done it! Psycho Sid is once again the WWF champion!
He does lose that title to Undertaker at WrestleMania 13. And his final appearance in the WWF was in July 97. He left the company to recover from a neck injury that would actually require surgery at that time. So, and then where does he go? It's a second return to WCW, baby. Follow the money. He returns to WCW in July of 99, the Great American Bash. He joins the Macho Man in a feud against Kevin Nash.
Isn't that poetic?
Yeah, why not?
Well, no, that's Lanny Poffo and Macho Man. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And he would go back to using the name Sid Vicious. He also adopted the nickname Millennium Man due to the upcoming year 2000. God damn it, Jess, you got to stop doing this to me.
It's true.
He also began to referee to have referee Charles Robinson carry around a white card with Sid's undefeated record since returning to the company. This was obviously meant to mock Goldberg's streak. Wow. Just wow. Sid defeated Chris Benoit in September of 1999 at Fall Brawl to win his first and only U.S. championship. He would lose Sid title to Goldberg at Halloween Havoc due to ref stoppage for excessive blood loss. Any comment there?
I loved it when he came. I didn't like his alignment with Macho Man. I thought, like, again, they bring Sid back and they shove him with the group. It's like, why are you shoving him with a group? Like, he is a group. He is a group at 6'10" and 300 pounds. He is the group.
I didn't see one man gang teaming up with people till later. I'm just saying, like, you know,
yeah,
like, he is a one man gang, right?
And the Charles Robinson thing, he was called Little Nate because he actually loved Nature Boy in real life. Charles Robinson, he was an actual referee in WCW and a very good one. But they kind of put him as like a heel on screen character. So he would wear his ref costume and he'd walk around with his fucking 12-0, 15-0, and every week it would just jump up and he was mocking Goldberg because Goldberg had already lost his undefeated streak by this point. But the company was trying to rehab Goldberg a little bit and get him back relevant again. So Sid comes in as the antagonist going like, I'm undefeated since I've been back. I'm the Millennium Man. I'm the man of the 2000s. Like, so every week it was like Sid would run out during like a cruiserweight match, like a 6-man or lucha tag. And he would come in and he would powerbomb all 6 and he would make Charles Robinson pin all of them, count all, you know what I mean? And then like, he would just be like, oh, it just went up to, it went up from 10-0 to 16-0. Like, and they were doing all the time. So it was pissing Goldberg off. And I liked that. I loved that because Sid was able to talk shit. He was this big bad heel that was coming in. He's like, I'm the real undefeated guy. I'm this. And it was just hilarious because y'all like that from Sid. So yeah, you would be seeing just a ridiculous match between two like low mid-carders. And then fucking here comes Sid running to the ring, choke slam, powerbomb. He'd pin them both because of Charles Robinson coming in there and counting the pin. And then Charles Robinson would instantly take a marker and change the record. Like it was cool and creative and fun. And it was one of the very few things that WCW did that was kind of cool in 1999, especially when they were just, the wheels were falling off the bus here. But yeah, like I kind of like that run with Goldberg because that's his job, right? He comes in as a big heel. And even though he ultimately lost to Goldberg, that's fine. You're rehabbing the cash cow who had been badly damaged like 4 or 5 months before from fucking losing his undefeated streak to Nash from a cattle prod. And so you're trying to rehab him. Sid comes in, cool little gimmick, little mocking towards the undefeated streak, little cool nickname or whatever, and gets in there. I had no problem with it. I thought it was fun. I did. Like,
but the referee is stopping this because of too much blood. Goldberg gets his hand raised, and Goldberg is going to become the U.S. heavyweight champion. Sid Vicious, Sid Vicious,
and what they did at Halloween Havoc was very cool. It kept kind of Sid's heat. Him and Goldberg got into a fight earlier on in the night. He was bleeding like a stuck pig. He came out kind of stitched up, almost refused stitches, but it was clean. And then he just started bleeding all over the place and it went everywhere. And they stopped.
We were there live, right? Yeah, we were there live in the arena. We could see Sid was covered in blood.
You guys did what, 4 or 5 Havocs in a row because they were all in
Vegas?
Yeah.
So do you think they did a pre-cut in the back to make?
I don't know. I think maybe Sid might have bladed himself when he was out there.
And all he had to do was reopen it in the ring. It wasn't bleeding when he started.
That's what
I think
curious.
a couple punches back on it.
Yeah.
And it was opened again big time. But and he even counted it because the ref stopped it due to blood loss. Sid didn't count it as one of a loss. So he went into the next pay-per-view was 80-0. So it was a great way to keep it going. And it kept Sid
really
strong.
Smart.
And Sid was strong and was cheered loudly. It was a good match. It was intense. I mean, I was completely ready to fast forward because it's Goldberg and Sid, but it was watchable, and maybe that was the blood talking. But
I think a lot of people won't. If you say what are Sid's best matches, they won't list it, even though they should, because that was a fucking good match. It really was.
If you really look at it, Sid versus Goldberg on paper, you're like, I'm not fucking watching that, and you go, oh, that was actually pretty good. One of the few gyms you'll find in the WCW library, right? But it's there. You can dig it up, find it in the goddamn WWE network. It's in there. Like I said, he would claim he's still undefeated. He would lose a rematch against Goldberg at Mayhem pay-per-view in November, and then 2000 is kind of a blur, right? We have a lot of booking issues, committee issues. Executive changes in WCW, but on January 24th of Nitro, Sid would defeat Kevin Nash to win his first WCW World Heavyweight Championship, only to have the commissioner, who's also who?
Stupid Kevin
Marvin Nash,
the guy he lost it to strip it from, saying nope, wasn't good. So do they count that one, Jess?
They do.
They do.
No,
right.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Sorry. Yes, they do.
I'm going to say they do.
Yep.
He would win the title back in a short time later, holding it for 76 days before being stripped again by Russo and Bischoff. They stripped all WCW titles and hit the reset button on the company. And your notes are literally, fuck me.
Yeah, it was terrible. And the thing is I purposely didn't tie in what happened before January 24th in 2000 was Sid fought Chris Benoit for the title at Sold Out January pay-per-view for WCW. And that was because Bret Hart had to forfeit the title because that's when Bret had his major concussion because Goldberg kicked him in the face. And so they vacated the title. Chris Benoit won the championship that night because Chris Benoit was threatening to leave. And then the next night on Nitro, they were like, do you want to stay? We put the title on you. Benoit was like, I still want to go. And that's when the Radicals, Guerrero, Malenko, Benoit, and Saturn left and jumped ship to WWF. So they were stuck with Sid, and they were just like, well, we're going to put the title on you. So Kevin Nash and the bookers at the time were like, wouldn't it be great heat if, you win the title and then I strip it from you because I'm commissioner? It's like, no, not really, but you're going to go ahead and do that anyway. So fuck me is totally appropriate at this because it's just, Dave, you'll read on. Just read on, and Craig and I won't say shit. It's maddening.
Okay. When you literally write "fuck me" in the notes, Jess, you have to understand what you're doing to me here. I'm just saying, like this. Now I know it's purposeful at this point. You're like, this is so good. I can't wait for Dave to read this. But anyway, in late 2000, Sid would begin to challenge Scott Steiner for the WCW World Title. On January 14th at the Sin pay-per-view, Sid would face Jeff Jarrett and Scott Steiner in a 3-way match. At one point during the match, he would jump off the middle rope. I know it's coming, to deliver a high knee to Scott Steiner, a spot he had never done before and was not comfortable doing. But Steiner was just out of reach, so he needed to end up trying to do a big boot. When he landed, he broke his left leg in half, snapping both the tibia and the fibula. The break was caught on live pay-per-view and was considered by many as one of the most horrific spots that you can find ever caught on camera. A 17-inch rod was put in Sid's leg after a 2-hour surgery. Guys, before you do comment, I just got to tell you, personal experience. I actually broke my fibula in, I want to say 94, 95. I was in a soccer match and I was kicked in the leg. I literally tapped the ball away right as this guy was ready to shoot on goal, and his entire impact of his kick hit me right in the fibula, and I only splintered the fibula all the way around. I didn't break it and move it. I cracked it through and through, but didn't move it, and it was incredibly painful. Incredibly painful. This situation has got to be 100 times worse. He broke it, and his entire leg shifts in a 90-degree angle, if I'm not mistaken. It is every time I see it, I cringe. Where the surgery where God split you and sewed you up, right in between. That all puckers up every time I see it. You all know what I'm talking about. You want to make fun of it? You want to call me a weirdo? But where God split you. When you cringe up and that shit hurts, every time I watch Sid break his tibia, fibula, and a 90-degree angle, I pucker up, and it brings everything back to that injury that I had, and I know for a fact it's not even close because my tibia was uninjured. This is a big man collapsing under the weight of his own self, because nobody would expect a big man to do that. Why? God damn it! Why does a big man even have to do that? He's a fucking 300-pound man. He shouldn't even be on the ropes. But anyway,
that is so difficult.
Look at the left foot.
That is so difficult to watch. We've seen it already.
Another angle
already so many times, and it's still just so.
Once again isolated. The foot, obviously, the compound fracture.
So the story behind that was Johnny Laurinaitis, which everybody knows who he is, and married to the Bella Twins' mother in real life right now, and he's the real life brother of Animal from the Road Warriors. Before he became like executive of talent in WCW, taking over in WWF, taking over the Jim Ross's position, he was that similar position in WCW. So when Sid came back, Sid was actually he didn't wrestle for like 4 months. And he even said in shoot interviews, I hadn't been weight training like I used to be. I didn't have my ring, boots on. I wasn't in ring shape, but they called me. We need you to come back. We need a credible challenger for Scott, blah, 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 blah. You're going to be involved in this thing. And Animal is actually going to be like the fourth mystery partner, come in to make it a 4-way or some stupid hokey WCW bullshit. So Laurinaitis came up to him and said, Sid, we need you to jump off the top rope. We want to start doing spectacular stuff with our stars and kind of getting, clips and replaying them for the media outlets and shit like that. So Sid's like, well, what do you want me to do? He's like, I want you to get on the second rope and jump off and give him a high knee. And Sid's like, I don't do that. I'm not a high flyer. Why would I do that? You could just have Scott whip me in the buckle and I'll big boot him when he comes in. And Scott takes that awesome. Scott's great at that. So, and Laurinaitis is like, nope, sorry. We really want you to do this. We want to start telling our guys to do things you wouldn't expect to get people talking at home. Wow. Did you see Sid, jump off the top rope and do this shit? So Sid's like, fine. I mean, I'll try it, but I'm not in ring shape. I'm not comfortable with this. So the night of the pay-per-view, Sid goes to him again and says, I'm legitly not comfortable with it. And he goes, oh man, I already talked to production truck. Once you do that move, that's going to be the cue for Animal to come down with his mask on and unmask himself and reveal himself as Animal, and he's going to be part of the match. So that move is the cue for the truck to go back to Animal, getting out of the limo in the back and coming down the aisle. So Sid's like, fine, I guess, whatever. I'll be a team player and I'll do it. Well, we all know what happens. He fucking gets on the middle rope. He jumps off to high knee Scott Steiner, but Steiner, and I'm not ripping on Steiner, he was not close enough, so Sid extended his right foot when he was in midair after jumping off the second turnbuckle to kick Scott in the face. And he did, and he landed on his left leg, and he landed at an angle, and it fucking snapped in half. And the ironic thing is this. On the live version, they didn't get the break. So the whole bullshit about the truck fucking catching that move and putting Sid at risk to give the truck the cue to go to the back and show Animal's limo pull up and Animal get out or whatever was totally fucked up in total WCW fashion. The only reason why we saw the break and why the break exists now on tape is the next night on Nitro, they decided to play all the other camera angles, which are hot and rolling, you know what I mean, while it's happening. And then that showed the break. When you actually watch the pay-per-view, he gets on the middle rope. they cut to a shot of a limo pulling up in the back. And when they come back out to the ring live, he's laying in the ring with his fucking leg hanging off. Like, that's totally WCW at that point. And they went out of business 2 months later. And it's just like, it's just so fucked up, you know, when you think about it. Look, yeah, he agreed to do it, but Jesus Christ, right? Like, why would you do that? Why? A high knee? Do you really think people, like teens at home, are going to be like, do you see Sid's high knee from the middle rope? Oh, shit. We've been seeing Rey Mysterio for 4 years. Like, there's nothing that he can do off the middle rope that's going to make me go, those cruiserweights are something special. But that motherfucker Sid, that high knee from the second rope, that's changing the goddamn sport, I'll tell you. Absolutely WCW horseshit. Absolutely crap.
Craig.
Yeah.
I'll get off my soapbox.
I mean, if a guy's not comfortable with it, a natural athlete like Sid, they played baseball and boxed and martial arts and weight trained and naturally took to wrestling like a duck to water. And if he tells you, I'm not comfortable doing it, and you force him to do it, even though, I mean, he agreed to it, it's just, I mean, it effectively ended the in-ring career. I can't watch that again. And they exploited it by showing it like 50 more times during Nitro,
the next
and then,
night
never showed
on
it
Nitro.
again. It was awful and disgusting, and I can't watch that again. And completely unnecessary.
Yeah, totally unnecessary.
I don't know how else to say it. I mean, you know, who knows what would have seen from Sid going forward, but due to that severity of the injury, his in-ring career was effectively over. But there was a ton of intense rehab. They said he would never run again. He was determined, the doctors actually told Sid he would never even run again. He was determined to prove them wrong. And on the next year, he would hit that goal. On June 25th of 2012, Sid would return as Psycho, and he would defeat Heath Slater with a powerbomb in a nostalgic moment, but he would wrestle his last professional wrestling match on August 5th, 2017 in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada for the GNW promotion. I don't even know who that is.
It's like a Canadian promotion. It's not important.
I get it. So it sounds like, you know, they were going to do something with Slater and move forward, but it didn't work out again.
No, there was a whole thing where Slater was like challenging Legends or whatever, and it was a whole thing. Instead of pushing Slater, they were burying him with Legends coming back. But you know, you got to saw Vader came every week. Slater would come out and be like, you know, it's like these old Legends, you know, they don't know when to quit. And then like 1 week Vader came out and beat shit out of Slater and pinned him, and then the next week Sid came out, and the crowd actually popped very big for Sid when he came out, and he actually pulled the little powerbomb off and got it. I'm pretty sure he pulled the powerbomb off. I could be wrong. If he definitely did a choke slam, but I think he did a powerbomb too. But to what Dave said before is, yeah, the doctor said he was never going to run again, but Sid knew right then, well, fuck it. Like, more important than weight training on my body, I'm going to work out to where I can run again. And he did. And a year later, he was able to finally run again, you know? So that was a big deal. That's a major break. That's a major fucking injury. When you're 6'10", 320 pounds, and we all know as these guys, these athletes, when they age and they're that big, they shrink a little bit because their backs fucking give out and like their body just starts breaking down. So getting this injury in 2001, he wasn't a spring chicken per se. I'm not saying he was an old man at all, but he was past his wrestling prime. So to get this injury at that point, you know, is rough. And then he's got to go into a different type of workout and a different type of care for his body, where he's like, fuck weight training and being big. I got to just fight and work out to run again. You know, that's fucking amazing. And it's amazing that he did it, and it shows his willpower, and like, what a brutal injury. And like, I mean, honestly, he could have lost his leg. You break it around the right artery, you're done. You know, like it's you could die or lose your leg. You know, I mean, look at the quarterback, Alex Smith. And they're just revealing what happened with him. You know, he got that severe injury in football, 3 years ago? So they did the operation on his leg, which was a severe break, and he got an infection, and he almost lost his leg and died. Like 17 surgeries. You know, it's like, you don't think of these athletes like that. You know, you think that, oh, they're injured, they're off recovering, and you don't know. Sid could have easily gotten an infection. The operation could have went wrong. Him being as big as he is, he could have been rehabbing and broke it again. Like, you know, you don't know. Like, you just don't know.
We look at the technology of then versus even before now. It's gotten much better. Bo Jackson dislocates his hip on a weird tackle, and no one believes that he dislocated it, and no one looks into it. And the hip eventually dies because all the arteries around it are bleeding into it.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest athletes of that time has to get a hip replacement surgery and can't play football anymore. That's legit. That actually happened. You just don't know. And at least with Sid, you knew something happened and they were able to recover it quite quickly. And, maybe that's the reason why he was able to move forward. But yeah, they're baffling doctors every day saying, well, I can do it. It comes down to maybe a little bit of luck, the fact that you're very athletic to begin with, and a lot of willpower to make it happen. But kudos to Sid for working that to not be crippled for the rest of his life. He was determined not to do that, wrestling or not.
And to end on a high note, when he came back and fought Heath Slater in 2012, he looked good. He looked great. Yeah. He didn't look fat and swollen. He looked like Sid. He was wearing jeans, but that's a nice way to end and to remember Sid, was him powerbombing Heath Slater that night and getting in one last time rather than snapping his tibular.
Hey, all the big boys eventually wear jeans or yoga pants or something. They can't work out the legs like they used to. Every day is not leg day anymore. Hogan went to the pants. Hey, even Stone Cold went to the jeans. Come on. They all had to do it eventually.
And before you get to the championships and accomplishments, I think we actually, at the beginning of this episode, we said what we normally say at the end. And we said some really cool stuff about Sid. He did stuff on his own terms. In my opinion, he got falsely labeled a softball boy because he had no problem walking away and doing something he loved. And I think he was actually a professional softball player for a couple of years too, from 97 to 99 or something.
That's crazy.
And he loved doing it, and he had no problem being like, you know what? You don't want to use me the way you promised me? Yeah, bye. I'll see you in a little bit. And he did that no matter what. And there was other things like the scissor fight and stuff that put a dark cloud over his career and stuff. But at the same time, Sid always was a draw. He always came back at the right moment. And then when he came back in that 4-month vacuum, right? Like that from November of 96 to when he lost to The Undertaker at Mania 13 in March of 97, 2-time world champion, totally made up for lost time. I thought he looked awesome with the belt, goes to WCW. And even though WCW was in its dying years in 2000, he still won the title twice there. Not 3, Sid, 2. And I think that's and he won a U.S. title, an awesome U.S. title in 1999, which I enjoyed. And, that run with Goldberg. I think Sid did shit on his own terms. And I think Sid, a lot of people remember Sid. He was a big, imposing figure. His interviews were awesome, and we got to talk real quick about his flubs. There's a lot of famous Sid flubs out there. One of them was the, Nash, I have half the brain that you do, which was a promo he did on Nitro. And, there was a lot of Sid Mike flubs or whatever, but people, I think when they bring them up now, they fondly remember them. Another one was he did an interview with Jim Ross live on an In Your House. I'm pretty sure it was an In Your House. And they do an interview and JR was, Sid, you're about to go out there or whatever. And Sid starts to talk. He flubs. He's like, can we start over? And Jim Ross is like, no, we're live, pal. And it was crazy, on a live. That's another famous Sid moment. And the other one was after a cage match with Bret Hart. Bret Hart went on this cussing tirade in the ring and said everyone in the locker room knows that he's the greatest there is, best there was, best there ever will be. And Sid comes down the aisle and answering that immediate question, he just yells out, I don't know shit. And yeah. So, but you know what? I take it as charm, right? We talk about the injury he came off of and everything. And it's pretty amazing that he was able to run again and just fucking walk, right? Without a cane, is amazing.
And I know that you're only half the man that I am. And I have half the brain that you do.
Yeah. Well, we're talking about those flubs and we remember them and we laugh at them. It almost sounds like we're making fun of them, but I tell you, as a wrestling mark, which is everyone on this podcast, we love finding flubs like that in anyone. Hogan even has his moments of what's the kids out, brother? Totally fucks that up. I mean, Owen says that's why I kicked the leg out of your leg, and we love those guys. I mean, so Sid having flubs on the mic, everybody does it. We're not making fun of Sid, but it's fun to go back and remember those things because those are those little inklings of hey, we know this is predetermined. we still love it. And those little things give us that little nug that goes, oh, we're right.
Yeah.
And
another
and we're
promo I love of Sid is, and this was on purpose, but it was amazing, is his promo before his match against Hogan in 8, when he starts off and calls Mean Gene, "Shut up, you fat ball-headed little oaf." And he screams at the top of his lungs. Right. And then Mean Gene gives like almost kind of corpses a little bit and like looks over to Harvey, like, "What? Why did he say that to me?" But it was... I watched that 4 times today. I rewound it back, and it was just stuff like that. It was fun.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Sid was a great character. He was really fun. So, Dave, I know you have the accomplishments and championships.
You listed most of them. We'll go through. He was ranked 16th in the PWA 500 for 1991. He was ranked. He was listed as the PWA Comeback of the Year in '96. He was the USWA champion twice. WCW World Champion twice.
Not 3.
Not 3. WCW US Champion once. And the WWF World Champion 2 times. 2 times.
And we never talk about his first run, when he was in there in 91, 92. He was in there with like Hogan, Piper, Flair, Undertaker, Roberts, Macho Man. Like he was in there with everybody. He was kind of at the end of that first boom period where he first came into WWF. And even before, when he was in WCW, he faced, people like Sting, and he was in the War Games match. And then even after that, he beat people like Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like he faced everybody. Like he faced Vader. Like he faced everybody. Sid did. He was a big part of all those big names intertwined with Sid somehow at one point.
No, I totally agree. I think his career is greatly diminished. People want to, I don't know if they want to erase it, but they don't see it as a huge impact on wrestling history. And he had that. I think he had that in spades. No, I mean, at the end of the day,
he packed a lot into just 10 years when you think about it. Like,
and who knows what would have gotten if not for that break, right?
Right. And he was a guy, the older I get, the more I respect people that kind of do it their own way and not afraid to like stand up to power, I think. And the fact that he admittedly never cared. He didn't have a passion for it like Bret Hart. And he wasn't a mark for himself. He just chased the money and was making a living and never got super overly invested in himself or worked himself into a shoot, as they say. And whether he was winning or losing. True. And he always kind of found fortunate ways and fortunate periods to squeeze in there and always squeeze right to the top of the card very quickly. But I think the wins and losses and that kind of thing and the political power plays were never important to him. So I think he made the money he wanted to make between his injuries and his stints. He did what he wanted, and it's God bless him. Like, who knows what could have been if he was a guy that lived, breathed, and ate it 24/7, but he didn't, and he wasn't. And good for him. And he walked away and kind of couldn't come back. But
he's still walking, by the way.
On his terms.
A lot of these guys aren't walking anymore. They take it too hard for too long, and they don't make it through. So, agreed. Hit us up on Instagram at O.W.P 2019. You can click on Linktree. Find us on several platforms, including Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. This is Dave, Jess, and Craig with the O.W.P. and Sid signing off. Have a good one.